Plato. You see, if you get into the Timaeus, it appears that if you go through the mathematics, people who are expert in this field say that the only way he could have constructed that was with the heliocentric hypothesis, not the geocentric theory. Right. And the man who did this is a man by the name of Taliaferro, who was a very fine mathematician, philosopher. And he gave a proof. And it matches some of the old stories among the Greeks, that the idea was out that the sun was the center of our solar system, and people would chase the people who believed it down the street and throw cabbages and everything else at them because they thought they were crazy. Because after all, everyone can see the sun going down. You go down the beach and you can watch it going down. You ever see that? Sure. I mean, you can't be mistaken about something that big. I mean, if you like evidence, physical evidence. So, yes, that raises that issue. So let me just acknowledge that and go on. Right? Now, from each of these 8 that spin, there's a whirl and a sound is produced. So one note comes from the siren, and each of these produce a note, and that's called the harmony of the spheres. Right, because as they're turning around, each one has a note, and the siren, which is over the whole thing, of course, is in one beautiful note. So the whole concord is a harmony. So the whole universe is a harmony. Beautiful. Now, they are 3 daughters of necessity, and these are sometimes called the fates. And so here, of course, is necessity, and now we need 3 daughters. By heavens, I happen to be good at drawing women. Each one so beautiful it astonishes those who observe them, right? But when you have talent, I mean, you have to show it. So there's the 3 things, right? Of course, you know them. Lachesis, which is the fate of what is past, right? Clotho, the present, and Atropos, of course, is the future. Each sings in unison with the sirens, and they all turn the spheres, and that's what makes the entire universe move with such beauty and sound. Laches, however, now plays another role, major role. Laches, we will put here. Lachesis, sometimes they call her, right? And she has on her lap, right, all of the patterns that men may choose to determine their next life, and what are called lots. Because there's so many people going to be reborn, that they have to be given a time in which to make their choices. So if they distribute lots, you look at your number, oh, you're in the 5th lot, then you have to wait for the 5th group to make the choice of what kind of life you're going to live. So therefore, it's a combination of patterns and lots. Now, what's interesting, of course, is there's a prophet. And we'll make a prophet here. And he chooses those, he takes those, and he then distributes them. First, just the lots, he distributes the lots, and they fall just about where each soul is, so you don't have to do much, just reach and pick it up. And what's important about that is the statement Plato makes. He says, look here, she says, now this is her, this is Lachesis says, no divinity shall cast lots for you. You choose your own deity. Deity, remember, we're going to use that term later in another way. To whom falls the first lot, select a life to which you shall cleave of necessity. Right? So, look here. You pick up your lot. Now you can choose which lot, the patterns. And you cleave to that of necessity. So if this, in this beautiful picture, of course, you can see a soul. Right? And if he chooses, he gets that lot. He waits for his time to choose one of these patterns. He chooses the pattern. Now, this is most interesting, you see, because now you shall cleave of necessity to that choice that you made at that time. No change. It gets worse. And now the Lachi says, the blame is on him who chooses, because the choice of a different life inevitably determines a different character. Your character comes from the choice you made of that life. That's how you get your character. So the pattern, that becomes a particular life you choose. That life you choose determines what kind of a character you have. Fixed. And then she says, look here, even if you were to make if you were in the last lot, and if you had to make your choice of what kinds of patterns you're going to choose for your next life, even if it's the last, Plato says, if you choose wisely and live strenuously, then there's reserved for him an acceptable life, not an evil one. What do you need? Wisdom to choose, right? Even if last, if he chooses wisely and lives strenuously, that's a very, very important point. And matter of fact, we should have spent a little more time last week when we did the Phaedo on this idea of strength. He has two ideas, you see. He says that the reason man's condition is so terrible, the reason why man is in such a terrible condition, has nothing to do with good or evil. It has to do with two things. He is sluggish. That's his problem. Nature, man's sluggish. And weak. Feeble, he calls it feeble. Translation is feeble, but it's weak. Weakness. He doesn't have sufficient strength. That's man's problem. Now, sluggish means not that you can't move, but that there's a very low rate of change. Right? Now, equally well, you have to have a certain degree of strength in order to play this philosophical game. Why? Last time we spoke about the fact that the most interesting thing about the nature of reality is that it is beauty itself. It is ultimate reality. And you need strength to endure that experience. You simply need strength to endure that experience. You have to get it. If you don't have the strength, then you're not going to be able to endure more profound experiences. Sluggishness. If you stick to the where you are, if you're fixed in the life you have chosen, if you're satisfied where you are, you're a slug. Right? You're incapable of movement. It's too difficult to move. Right? When you ever have to try to break through and try to live more meaningfully, the first thing you recognize is that all your vows are difficult to make. I mean, not difficult to make, difficult to keep. Right? We're sluggish. Somehow we're pulled back by some strange psychic gravity to stay in the condition we've been in. So there are two things you need for this philosophical and psychic growth. You need strength, and you need a certain kind of strength that will propel you and allow you to make these kinds of transitions into more meaningful ways of life. That's why when we talked about last time, there's a kind of yoga that takes place in the Phaedo that we talked about in the afterworld. So I just wanted to mention that now and keep on going. All right? Okay. Now, therefore, if the person chooses wisely and lives strenuously, if they have the strength, then they can grow. You need psychic strength, and that's why, of course, there are the yogis and the Bhastika and the Kumbhakas and all the yoga breathing exercises, which we saw last week, matches one of those interesting states that is in the myth and the Phaedo. All right. Now here's the problem. Here is the problem. All right, so this is all background. Let's get the problem out.